In this episode, we're going to be sharing some tips and approaches to help you significantly increase engagement, productivity and happiness within a large team.
Welcome to Leaders Path, leadership journeys of people within the IT and business change professions. Brought to you by Middleton's Assured Talent, IT leadership and business change recruitment specialists.
Welcome to Leaders Path, everyone. So improving engagement of employees is undoubtedly a common aim of most business leaders. Perhaps even more so, improving performance and the output of the team is undoubtedly on everyone's agenda. Today, I'm chatting to a senior IT leader who has some practical approaches to share, as well as a specific example that results in a 36% increase in engagement within a large team and function that he was leading. As well as this considerable increase, the team productivity went up, as did their general happiness. So I'm very happy and pleased to welcome Stuart Duthie. So morning, Stuart.
Hi, Nick.
So first of all, Stuart, can you tell us a little bit more about your background before we go into the specific details?
Sure, yeah. So I've been working about 13 years now as a senior IT leader, come IT director. So I was IT director for about 3 organisations and then did some work for one of the large insurance companies. But my experience has been around all areas of IT, including everything from the operations through to the systems, the strategy, and of course the people side of things. But done quite a lot around the customer journey and the business process side of things as well. So that's a real interest of mine.
Excellent. And you're now working as an interim consultant. Is that how many years have you been working interim?
That's right. Well, I've done one interim role so far. I had some of the period at Allianz was sort of a foot in both camps, really. So I was there still essentially as a secondment, but I had a lot of interim flavours around it. And then I've done a role for Victrex as head of business systems, Victrex being a FTSE 250. But again, a lot of extra advice, I think, around to help around the strategy and some of the team elements as well.
Excellent. So let's jump into the example and the results that you managed to achieve. So you can tell us a little bit of the background of what was there when you entered into this situation.
Yeah, so this was a role within a major insurance company. It was the one I referred to as essentially it was on an interim basis. I won't go into the whole detail around that, but the team when I started there weren't in a particularly good place. There's a number of leaders who had moved on within the organisation, but I think had become a little bit stale in their approach, and that had really sort of started to affect really the way that the team themselves were operating. And you could see some of that through the team behaviours, and particularly when there's a lot of pressure on there to deliver quite a high volume of work, but the team were in a there's a lot of sort of just following the process. There was perhaps not as much ownership as you'd expect around work. And, I could see there's a real potential actually, because I had some great people in the team, great organisation, some real opportunity and potential to really turn that around.
Excellent. And before we delve into the details, so can you give us a picture of the outcome that you managed to achieve from the work you did with that team?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I really like the words that Daniel Pink uses for this. He talks about autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And the team, certainly had real purpose at the end. And I was very keen to build that into a lot of the discussions we had. So they understood the relationship between their work and the business. But in terms of that, autonomy, they'd done work to build their own objectives. And start to develop their own practice on things and the way that they would do work. And that created a lot of energy within the team. And there was, what was I going to say? Certainly, so we had the autonomy there, we had the purpose there. And in terms of the mastery, we had a lot of work then developing the way that they would do things, a professional practice within the team. And, so we had a team then that was starting to improve themselves and move themselves forwards. And I think that was really, I'd say, the crux of getting that 36% increase in staff engagement. And certainly you notice the energy levels, if you came into the office, were very different. We had other work happening within the portfolio. We had work which was little opportunities piece of work which we've been able to insert in. The improvement work was happening, but we're also still hitting our targets with the commitments we already had on. So essentially, we were doing more with the same team, and our customers were more satisfied. We had a 10% increase in customer satisfaction, so they noticed the difference as well.
Excellent. And those are considerable numbers, really. So tell us, what were the first steps you took, and how did you really get that understanding of what you had in your team, and then how to take them from there?
Yeah, so I think it's really important, really good questions. I think it's really important to understand the position of the team, and I think there's some quite nice tools out there actually. So one of the tools I look at is the capability of the team and the maturity of the team. And there's a number of models around them. I mean, Gartner published models on this sort of stuff, but there's a number of models out there. For this particular team, I used a combination of some of the things that they had internally around software development, but also around ITIL, and looked to compare what the business required compared to where the team were at, and looked at that gap and started to prioritise the efforts around that gap. But I think also, so understand the position of the team, the context it's operating in, and how they're doing things, I think is important. There's quite a nice little team mindset model that I use. It's a 4-box model that starts to describe the sort of things, behaviours you're seeing in the team, and enables you to really align them to the overall position. But it's also helpful in terms of understanding your behaviour as a leader as well, and picking out things that you might be doing. That might be small things which are also perhaps counterproductive within the team. And the model essentially is a 2-axis model. So you've got awareness along one axis and control or influence along the other. And the 4 boxes describe as sort of a powerless mode, a victim mode, a transactional mode, and an empowered mode. And the ones around that have the low influence are the powerless and victim mode. And so, for example, powerless, it's about following the rules, just doing the minimum. And you can imagine the sort of behaviours that you see within that. The victim mode, a lot of describing the problem, but not actually able to solve the problem, allowing barriers to get in the way rather than actually either spotting them and navigating around them. And I think that, and I think that's a pretty good characterisation actually of where the team were at when I joined them. And I think the third tool in that area is the Myers-Briggs tools, which I appreciate. A lot of people have come across, but understanding the particular individuals that you're working with and tailoring your approach to them. So, for instance, you've got an axis within Myers-Briggs that's introvert, extrovert, and it really describes how people like to consider problems and break them down. The extroverts will tend to want to bounce ideas around, maybe quite a noisy discussion, helps them form a particular view of what the solution might be or what the situation is. Whereas an introvert would typically take a more reflective approach and might work on more of a one-to-one basis, or might even go away and really want to go and consider things themselves and then come back and discuss it once they formed an opinion. And I think, understanding how people in the teams work is really important.
I think so. Previous role, we went through a similar process with the team, and I think we used the Myers-Briggs tool. What was really valuable was actually frustrations you might have felt for different people in the team because they didn't act in the way that you felt was, or do things the way you wanted them to do them, or see things in the same way, and you start recognizing the difference, and actually everyone's got their own set of strengths, they're just not the same. And I think it helped us, first of all, change our feelings with certain colleagues who you may have been frustrated with in certain scenarios by appreciating them for their strengths, and then actually we could align tasks within the team according to people's sort of natural traits and strengths as well. And it had a huge impact, definitely a huge impact, just going through that process alone.
Yeah, and I think there's a certain depth there, because I think, I think Myers-Briggs, sort of understanding those different scales and how then you use them. So I think it's really good to understand where people are at and understand that sort of frustration and how you I guess, recognise and deal with that. I think the other aspect is around how you plan particular pieces of work. So for example, within brainstorming, and I guess we'll come on to this, but doing some work to then with the team to build an approach. understanding how the different people will respond to that, and designing tasks and brainstorming tasks that will, either work with extroverts or work with introverts, I think is quite an important aspect. And certainly something I've consciously tried to do, and consciously tried to get a variation of different approaches and different techniques. And Myers-Briggs is great because there's other things within there that perhaps indicate different presentation styles. If you're trying to present an idea, whether you present the big picture first and then talk about the rationale behind it, or whether you take people on the full journey and talk about the detail and the stages that then build up to the big picture. And again, Myers-Briggs gives some indication about how people prefer to receive that sort of information. So I'd say it's something that's worth actually some depth to and worth delving into. And certainly from my perspective, I didn't get there first step. I needed to do a bit of work with this from having first come across Myers-Briggs probably, 10, 12, maybe longer ago.
So you've got that understanding of the team. What do you then? How do you move that forward? What's next?
Yeah, so I think there's a different type of management style on this occasion. I think the normal sort of day-to-day approach tends to be around projects and timescales and deliverables, and actually I think quite a different approach with this. So I'm a qualified coach, and I think one of the things I have used and found quite beneficial is using that sort of coaching approach. And the idea around that is it's about not necessarily giving someone, it's definitely not about giving someone the answer, but it's about helping them find the answers themselves and helping them become more resourceful and able, hopefully in the future then to build their skills so they're not coming and asking questions perhaps so often. Now, applied then to the team environment, it's, I've tried to apply the same thinking in the sense of how do you make the team more resourceful? And, rather than then, I suppose the focus really around setting up the right environment and the right structure to allow the team to start to explore some of their own issues and find some of the solutions to those sort of issues. So I think that's quite an important element to it. I think there's something as well around I think active leadership. The two kind of aligned really. So it's understanding the difference between management and leadership. And making sure that the people who work with you, the other leaders or managers within the team, also understand that. And I think particularly for some of the work I did with this particular example, making sure that the managers also understand that different approach and understood the power of an active leadership, which can be quite small, is important. So, for example, if you're in a meeting, there's lots of discussion around a particular topic. The act of leadership, rather than diving in and getting involved in the discussion, might just be to reflect that actually perhaps we're getting a bit stuck here, guys. We've only got half an hour left. We seem to be stuck on this point. How do we progress it rather than trying to solve the actual problem itself? So is it a lot in that about listening and recognizing what's going on, and again creating that environment to find the solution rather than necessarily just trying to provide the solution or force a decision.
Makes sense. So the insurance company example, how did this approach pan out there? What did it look like when you put it into action? Yeah,
so this. So I think I'll talk about one particular example, which was a series of away days that we did, because I think that kind of characterises my approach and the approach we took as a team overall. So the first part was around that team understanding, and we did some work, as I say, around the sort of maturity model. Understood the position around using the mindset model, and built something for a small group. It's myself and my managers to start to explore how we're going to move it forwards. And I wanted them to take responsibility. I knew I was going to be there for a short period of time, but I wanted them to be able to step up and lead some of this work. And built a session with them thinking about those different Myers-Briggs types, where we could do some brainstorming. We had the capability model we used in that, and we could start to think about how we would run a series of away days for the team and start to building that sustainability. So first stage was really around that, and they built the the whole idea for the day, which was very much a party theme to it, which came out of the brainstorming. It wasn't what I expected when we went into that, and there were some really innovative ideas in there. And so we ran a day with the team. They started to identify through a number of game type exercises, all very business focused. Started to identify where some of the challenges were within the team, and thinking about where the team were in that sort of victim type mindset. What I wanted to do was to create, or for the team to identify some challenges that they could work on and start to get some confidence that they could solve some of these problems, that we could then start to build into some of the meatier areas within the team. So, and that really was the essence of that first away day, but with trying to build some sustainability in so that we knew that people would continue with these. So the second away day, we had essentially from the first away day, people broke into their own teams, not necessarily managed by the normal sort of hierarchical managers that you'd expect. People decided who would manage them. Our apprentice managed one of the teams, which was great, and actually gave everyone a good view about his capabilities as well, which was a fantastic spin-off from that. And then on the second day, a very loose format sort of roadshow where people would present their own ideas back. They had to figure out how they were going to do that and how they were going to structure that. And we provided some incentives in terms of coffee and cake vouchers as permission from the first day that people could work on this in work time and invest some time into that second day. And essentially people came up with the solutions for some of the problems. There were all sorts of things around some very technical performance type issues between the UK and India, to some more social things within the team that people wanted to look at. And we solved some of those problems, which was great. Second away day was more business focused. We had someone in from the business talking about business challenges, and culminated in the team sitting down and writing some of their objectives for the following year based on that day and based on some of the other stuff. And that really was the theme. So we did some other things within the workplace around improving practices around business analysis, project management, and architecture. But again, very led by the specialists who were involved in those sort of things. I guess my role was making sure we had alignment between that and the overall strategy of the organisation. Yeah. So, but hopefully that gives a bit of a flavour, and through those stages, using those different tools to perhaps do things a little bit differently.
Yeah, no, undoubtedly, and as you say, it ties back to that idea of Dan Pink's, the giving them the autonomy, the mastery, and the purpose to taking responsibility for the environment they're in. I can understand why you obviously achieved those results, but no, that's fantastic. So what we're going to do alongside this video, we're sharing some of the kind of headline facts of this. We'll also share some links to a couple of different tools that Stuart used, as well as some links to his blogs where he's delved into a bit more detail in some of the subject matter. And obviously, Stuart, if you're happy, we'll share your LinkedIn connection so people can approach you and speak to you directly. And
absolutely, yeah, definitely.
Or anything else. But thank you very much. That's been fantastic.
Okay, thank you, Nick.
Cheers.
Welcome to Leaders Path, leadership journeys of people within the IT and business change professions. Brought to you by Middleton's Assured Talent, IT leadership and business change recruitment specialists.